Alright, welcome back to the channel, guys. Doing a quick reaction to a Sid and Dina video. I've been watching these guys since I was about 15 for about 8 years. And I remember seeing a video, for example, where they did some chili challenge and Dina was telling Sid quickly eat loads of ice cream. I'm just saying I've watched these guys for a long time. I've consumed a lot of their content and I've enjoyed it for the most part, but they've been consistently things that I kind of disagree with them on. And I've started watching this video already, I'm not gonna lie, maybe the first third of it, and I started disagreeing again straight away. Many things I agree on as well, but let's just get into it.
Let's get into the question. I picked this question because I just felt like I could relate to it and I thought it was a good one to get back into. The title of this email is actually just titled Question. It's very intriguing. So, hello, Dina and Sid. I'm a young girl now struggling with how the Muslim world perceives me. I wore a headscarf 5 years ago with sincere intention. I have changed my views a lot since then. I noticed I always feel stressed about it. I figured out that wearing it in a more relaxed sense, it would protect my mental health. It did for a while. That also meant a lot of my hair kept showing, my neck, and blah blah blah. It didn't personally bother me since I value it to the point that it keeps my Muslim identity visible and I don't feel any pressure. However, the Muslim community went absolutely nuts about it. I can't go anywhere without dealing with people's comments about it or at least feeling someone doesn't like it. I have had several very bad experiences, like a random girl on a bus station sticking her hands under my scarf to cover my hair, or a guy who first tried to initiate sexual activities with me but later told me to cover properly. Anyway, I found my own balance over the years and now I have two problems. First one, I feel a strong sense of guilt and shame over my past few phases in which I've gone over my own limits. That happened because I couldn't deal with people shaming me and I couldn't separate what I'm okay with from what I'm not okay with. I wouldn't shame anyone else for it. In fact, I don't really give a F about what anyone else wears, but it seems like I'm my own only exception here. Now I feel weird around people that knew me at that time and just overall a lot of guilt. Relatable. Second problem, I met a person I really liked and really considered developing a relationship with him. Keep in mind that I'm now at my final stage of development in hijab. I'm not doing more or less. This is who I am and I felt satisfied and finally at peace that I found the balance I've been looking for. However, this guy I liked, after some time of me developing some feelings, made a comment about my hijab. The guy himself is not really a problem anymore since he proved to be a walking red flag, but the problem here is me. I got very hurt by this and figured out that no matter how much I like a guy or how amazing he seems to be at the time, I will lose all interest if he points out what is wrong about the way I dress. Am I supposed to feel shame or guilt for this? Am I too sensitive for making these types of comments my deal breaker for relationships? Her situation is she wore the headscarf 5 years ago and now over the last 5 years she has different sort of ideas or feelings towards wearing the hijab, but the main point is she's finally come to a place where she's happy with how she's wearing it and she feels balanced and she's comfortable. I think the first thing about feeling guilt and shame, I totally understand where you're coming from with that. It's normal to feel like that, although we shouldn't feel like that for making choices about the way we dress. But unfortunately, it's very common to feel that way.
No, but firstly, as a Muslim, if you're doing something that you believe is wrong, it's different if she's changed her opinion, obviously, which it sounds like she has, because there is maybe a minute difference of opinion, not something I'm going to go into and I don't know enough about it. But if you do feel like you're doing something wrong, you should feel a bit of guilt. You know, that's a sign that you feel like, that's a sign that you're doing something wrong. Now, obviously, that's with the caveat of if she believes it's mandatory to wear a hijab. I don't know. Sounds like she's saying she's changed her opinion. So I don't know if maybe Dina doesn't believe that anymore. I don't know.
Especially if you
or
yourself,
your own Islamic journey or whatever.
if you want to deep it and you want to look at what's right and what's wrong, you know what I mean?
What's right and wrong.
A lot of parents or aunties and uncles, a lot of older people in our community choose to please people that are irrelevant to their lives more so than their children or their blood. And that should be your priority.
They do that. It's a massive cultural thing, like we have to look a certain way.
We shouldn't have to feel that way, but even...
And I agree with that massively. And she's mentioned their uncles and aunties. I'm assuming she's referring to the Pakistani community more so. And it's this. She makes a good point. It's beyond the words the level of guilt and pressure they will make an individual feel. Excuse me. Just to please others. I mean, so much of the culture, or the sort of, I don't want to say almost Pakistani British culture, I don't know if they're the same back home, maybe they are, is about preserving some sort of honor of the family but at your own detriment, and the honor is just stupid anyway. It's not actually honor, it's just to show face, you know. It's, you know, my point is I agree with them massively here.
Till this day, I still feel a lot of these things that you put in that email, and it's a work in progress to stop yourself feeling certain ways, because really, to be honest with you, all of these things are small traumas that we
And I'll go back on the point of feeling the guilt. You shouldn't feel guilt towards society. If you believe that the hijab is mandatory for a female, or let's say the beard for a man, right? Obviously, it's different if they don't follow that opinion and they feel the guilt. You know, personally, I do. Majority definitely do. And if you do feel, you should feel that guilt if you believe it's wrong, because you're doing something wrong. You believe you're doing something wrong. If that is the case, but your guilt shouldn't be towards people and how people perceive you and how people think it should be towards God, and that you're not doing what you believe God has and the Prophet ﷺ has asked you to do. I'm not sure if she's making that point or not.
and it's all under the guise of it's for the greater good or it's for your own good, but it's not. It's all bullshit. And we actually all experience all these tiny little microaggressions and traumas and all this stuff. We then push that onto them, and then it just goes around in a big fat circle and nothing ever changes.
Anyways, I think I'm more interested in what you have to say on the latter question. Is it valid for a guy to have any opinion on what you're wearing?
I think if you and the guy have been getting to know each other for like 2 months, but then in month 3, he wants to make a comment about the way you dress, and it's just a small comment. It could be deemed completely harmless, just whatever, just a tiny little comment, but basically what he's saying is, you know, I'd like it if you maybe covered up a bit more. Why has he waited after feelings have developed for him to do a tiny little glimpse of what he really feels about how you dress? Because if you've been looking that way and dressing that way from the get-go, from when you saw your pictures, from when, however you met, and if he didn't like that at the time, then he shouldn't have approached you. In the back of his head was, I'll sort that out later, once we're together and once we've got feelings. Because we're not trying to change people out here. That's when things start to get borderline problematic and could.
But just a point I'd make here, right? Okay, why did he wait 4 months? Well, maybe because he struggles to talk about it. Maybe because he's worried. Firstly, it depends, right? If she's going around in a miniskirt and a crop top, and then he's gonna wait 4 months and tell her to wear a niqab, there's a big difference there. Obviously, he's borderline grooming her, you know, not necessarily in a, you know, what the connotations to grooming are these days in the UK, but in a general sense, he's grooming her because he's enticing her in, and then he's going to try and change and manipulate and use her for what he wants her to be, you know. But if it's more of a minor comment, right? Like, I don't know, if a female said after 4 months, oh, it would be nice if you grew your beard out, you know, the opinion is to not to trim the beard. I wouldn't be like, oh, you're trying to change me. Maybe it's something very, maybe it's something they really struggle with and have always envisioned their partner being a certain way. And to me, it's a minor thing, and to them, it's a big deal. And everything else checks out well, and they were nervous that I might react badly. You know, there's so many nuances to this. We're dealing with people. It's not always easy to say what you want to say in the first few months, is my point. And obviously, that is with the caveat of if he's trying to completely change her, you know, I don't know if it's too extreme to say, but borderline groom her and turn her into a different person, that is obviously just stupid in many ways and wrong. So, my issue with these guys and why I wanted to react to, and I think it's going to lead on to it, is they almost have a bit of a feminist spin on what they say. You know, and it's kind of like the guy is always wrong. There's not much critical thinking involved. She's picked the headline or title of the email because she already feels emotionally. I mean, she said at the start, I don't know if you saw it, I picked this email because I relate to it or something along those lines, which is fine. But you know, when you're gonna react to something you relate to, bear in mind there's going to be emotions involved. Clearly there is, as you'll see later on also. And I'm not telling her she's wrong for that or whatever, you know, if she ever sees this or whoever. I'm not judging them for that. But I'm just saying you might be a little wrong because you might be a little skewed via emotions.
Eventually turn into, I'm not saying controlling, but this is how you could enter into a manipulative relationship without really realizing it, and it being very, very gradual over time.
You don't always like everything about someone. You don't always. And I personally don't think you should control what anybody wears. That's my personal opinion.
But for a lot of people, they don't think it's control. But what it is, you should you shouldn't have any expectation for that person that you're getting to know to change before you guys get serious. Then just don't bother getting to know them, because if you guys change and grow together because you're both on a journey and you both maybe became more spiritual or more whatever, then fine, fair enough. But you can't put that on someone else.
Look.
Yeah, and that I think is a really good point, and I totally agree with that. If that's what she's saying, you shouldn't approach someone and try and change them. But if you grow together without the intention of I'm going to turn this, manipulate, groom this person to who I want them to be, that's totally stupid and wrong, and it's a recipe for disaster. Yeah. But if you grow together, it's different. But in this case, I'm just saying, look, the guy might have struggled to say, his opinion or whatever, or comment. And she's saying, what if he says it in a slight way after 4 months? Does that not indicate to you that perhaps she's struggling to talk about it? Maybe you tick 9 out of 10 boxes and that's the only one where he's like, oh, it's not even that bad. It's not like he's taking you from, bikini and whatever. And it's an extreme example, but to put the point across, to a niqab, maybe like I say, it's, you wear crop tops and that, the only thing is, I know it's between you and God, but I would struggle with that, And look, that's your right, man, and I think they're gonna go on to that. Look, you don't have to be with said individual if you don't want to. Likewise, she doesn't have to cover for you. You don't have to be with her if she doesn't. So they come with this just very female strong, allegiance, which I just disagree with sometimes. And as I say, I've watched them for 8 years, so I'm talking from watching them quite a bit.
Let me talk about me and Dina, right? I have 3 sisters who never wore a scarf. So when I got with Dina, she was wearing a scarf all the time. I thought that was strange. When me and Dina got to know each other, I was like, there's no days where you just blah blah blah. And it's a bit dumb of me, obviously. Muslim women are...
I wouldn't say it's dumb of him, but it's not the norm. Look, I'm coming from a Pakistani background. As you said, I think it's Batan, right? As I say, I've watched them for 8 years, yeah. Slightly different perhaps. Even most Batans I think are quite strict in their religion. I'm not saying again they're not, but the fact that he's saying he's got 3 sisters who never covered up, fine, whatever, their choice. But the fact that he's saying he found it a bit weird, and that is not the usual Pakistani British Muslim experience. The norm is you cover up, and it might not be hijab and abaya and whatever, but it is even a scarf. It's not abnormal. A normal reaction wouldn't be, oh, I found that weird. It wouldn't, and I'm not criticizing him for that. I'm just saying his experience is probably different to a lot of Pakistani Muslims. I don't know about Egyptians and so on.
Oh yeah, you put on your scarf and you don't show anybody except for your husband.
But this is the thing, it's not Muslim women at all. It's certain Muslim women are taught that, because clearly Pakistani women largely are not taught that. That's why they don't get told off when they take it off in a wedding.
No, they're not told.
Yeah, exactly. So they're
it's not a 24.
Often the weddings are segregated, so it's women on one side, men on the other. So if the women aren't wearing headscarf amongst women, no one cares. It's not an Islamic thing if you're coming from the Islamic paradigm. I don't think anyone should really be told off once you're like of a certain age. It's between you and God. So
they're just taught about modesty in general.
Can't show a strand sort of thing, like.
Yeah, they're just
in general
about modesty as a bigger picture as well as the physical, but it's not so. And then everyone's gonna judge this Pakistani girl for taking it off at a wedding. No.
Pakistani culture is...
I know I'm talking a lot here, but I think with this whole hijab issue, the issue is the judgment, because as I've reiterated many times, it's between you and God. And also as a spouse, you have the right to say, look, I don't want to marry a girl who doesn't wear hijab. Personally, I probably wouldn't have a massive issue with it if I knew that it was something they were maybe aspiring towards, or they didn't look bad at. If it was someone who's like, oh, that's so backwards, and then I'd say, listen, this is almost anti-Islamic borderline, right? Unless you take a certain opinion or something, then I'd have, I would have an issue with it. But if my wife didn't wear hijab, my hypothetical wife didn't wear hijab, then, and I knew that, look, it's something she struggles with, and I struggle with prayer, which is much more important than hijab. But I aspire to pray more and more, and more, as in on time and so on and so forth. So my point is, I digress slightly, but my point is the judgment is the issue. It's not necessarily the actual action. The judgment is the real issue, guys. Here, it's a judgment. It's people telling others, oh, you should. Look, you don't know what an individual is going through. You don't know their mental health. Kind of don't like that word anymore because it's thrown about so much, but it is a thing, obviously. You don't know anything about them, man. When they're talking about some woman putting her hand out, I feel like slapping that. Whoever does that, don't condone any violence, but it does make you angry. You know, who the hell are you to interfere in someone else's business? It's between others. God didn't give you the, you know, metaphorical flipping whatever the hammer is that the judge slams down.
Not just the scarf, it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Everything's loose. It doesn't have to be an abaya.
Yeah.
It's just loose, like.
It's just modesty, modest
Just
clothing.
loose clothing, and be honest, like, Sid has never had a problem with anything Dina's worn.
No, you never had a problem, but there has been a few back in the days.
The insecurity actually comes from Dina. Dina always comes up to me.
No.
Even today, on the daily, you come up, shall I wear this? I'm like...
But it's not from a place of, oh, I need religious advice.
No, you
It's
turn
just
around
like,
and go,
shall I
is
say?
this a bit too tight? And I'm just like, Dina, I don't care. It actually has nothing to do with it.
No, yeah, you're right, it doesn't.
No, this is where I massively agree with him, and I remember Hijab and Ali Dawa and these guys, and no one's perfect, but them, well, it was Muhammad Hijab who referred to him as a dayuth. If I recall correctly, it was about his comments about attached to her hip or her waist side or something in a podcast they did. This is going back maybe 2 years. And I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of dayuth kind of comments. I'm sorry, but as a Muslim man, yeah, okay, you don't force your wife how to dress, nor does she force you how to dress. If she's wearing tight, or if she's wearing un-Islamic clothing, yeah, as a man, let's not be, you know what I mean, cowardly. Yeah, you have every right to say, listen, that's not quite right, yeah. Obviously, if you married her in a certain way and now you're gonna try and change her, it's different. Can still speak to her and ask her, look, you know, I'm kind of trying to practice a bit more. We should try whatever. Maybe you'll drift apart, and unfortunately, you know, maybe you might even get divorced or something, you know, because you don't quite align anymore, and it's proving to be too difficult. Because it's unfair to marry a girl who's wearing a certain type of clothing, right? Just because we're on this topic about clothing they're talking about, it'd be unfair to marry a girl with certain type of clothing and then 5 years down the line say, oh no, completely change it, you know, that's obviously unfair. But if your wife, you've been married for X amount of time, she didn't usually wear tight clothing or un-Islamic clothing, let's just say un-Islamic clothing, haram clothing, yeah, however one wants to interpret that, because there are various interpretations, as they're saying. I'm sorry, but you should be the backbone in your family and try and keep everyone on a straightish path, right? I know we're going to deviate, we're going to struggle within ourselves, especially as a man. Part of being a man with all this toxic masculinity and all this BS that goes around, there's truth to it, there's not, whatever, it's another conversation. But have a backbone, man. Yeah, it's your wife. Yeah, there's haya and, you know, modesty and so on. Like, if your wife is talking about wearing what sounds like skin tight clothing and you're sitting there saying, I don't care, man, I don't care. What's wrong with you, man? I'm not telling you to grab her and put a burqa on her, yeah, whatever you want to call it, or niqab on her, yeah. But you should be, you know, as Ali Dawa always quotes, I don't mean to pull these guys into it, but I remember the reaction video where Hijab called him a dayuth, and that just reminded me of it. You know the hadith of conveying the good and condemning the evil, something along these lines. This guy clearly doesn't give, you know, I'm lost for words. I mean, have some backbone as a Muslim man. You should be leading your family. I'm not saying push your wife down and tell her what to do. I'm saying if your wife's coming to you and asking you about a dress, right? And here she's saying she doesn't, I don't know if she doesn't, okay, assuming the best, she's saying she doesn't sort of, she already knows whether what's allowed or what's not, which is perfectly fine. But come on, man, what's wrong with you? What do you mean you can't have an opinion on how your wife dresses? What do you mean? What is an opinion? You have an opinion. Choosing not, you have an opinion. You've got a God-given opinion. Legally you have an opinion. What do you mean you can't have an opinion? This is a stupid comment that people have to make. I don't understand. Passing judgment is one thing. Having your own opinion is another. There's other people who say this quite a bit, and men shouldn't comment on how women dress, or men don't have an opinion. What is an opinion, man? Maybe I'm getting the definition wrong. I could be wrong. What's an opinion? It's something you have of someone else. What are you on about? Judging them is a different thing. But listen, when it's your wife is the point I'm making. As a Muslim man, when it's your wife, specifically your daughter, your son, your whatever, you should, and they're asking you, I'm not saying forcefully spew some hatred into them, fear of God installed into them. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you should at least, and this goes both ways. Your wife should also steer you to the right path. You know, oh, I'm tired. I'm not sure if I can get up for prayer today, or your wife. Oh, I'm tired. I'm not sure if I can get up for prayer right now, so on. Should your wife turn around and say, as a Muslim, I'm not going to judge you for it, man. It's I don't have an opinion. I don't have an opinion. No, a good spouse will say, listen, we're Muslims. It's for God we're doing this. Yeah, it's for ourselves ultimately. Yeah. You'll be okay. Just go and pray. Come back, lie down. You're tired. Sleep in a bit. That's how it works. It's not. Oh, I don't care. It's. I'm lost for words. This guy, man. I do like him. I think he's a cool guy, but some of these comments are so stupid, and I would love to speak to him and see where he's coming from, because either you couldn't care. I mean, I'll be interested in knowing. Okay, if this is the case that he doesn't care, I wonder if he'd be okay with her in a bikini in a public beach. That I'd love to hear the answer to that. Does he then suddenly have an opinion? If so, where does he draw the line? At what point? Arms are okay. Yeah, a bit of your chest is okay, maybe. What if it's at a beach, like some of these beaches, some of them take their bra off as well. Yeah, don't ask me how I know what they do, yeah. Don't go to them beaches, yeah. Would he be okay with that? Probably not. So is he okay with her having a bra on and a bikini? I'm sorry to bring this up, but he's saying he doesn't have an opinion. So my point is, he's gonna have an opinion at some point. Why does he choose that point? That's my question to you, Mr. Sid. You're gonna have an opinion on her clothing at some point. You're gonna say, unless you are definitely a youth, you are going to say, "Oh, sorry, Dina, come on, I'm not comfortable with that. That's too much." Unless he's okay with the whole bikini, knickers, and bra thing, yeah. When it gets to that point, why at that point? Is it because that's just where he's comfortable? Is it because he can explain that at that point he feels he can defend it to people? Is it just he just doesn't care what? Because you've set that point for whatever reason, but really that point we should all try, and I fall short, don't get me wrong, we should all try to make that the point at which it becomes Islamically unpermissible or non-permissible, whatever the term is, haram, and that is truly aligning ourselves with Islam. And look, I'm a hypocrite in many things, don't get me wrong, don't take from me and whatever, but I'm just saying what he's saying is BS.
I know why I'm asking him. It's because he's my partner, and so obviously he's my friend. Like, I'm talking to him also because I come from an upbringing of really.
I think you're so used to it.
I come from an upbringing of such strict clothing that now that I've made the choice to take off my headscarf and I have the choice to wear what I want, I'm battling with myself and I'm speaking out loud and looking for.
Oh, is that what it is?
I'm looking for help me come to my sort of decision kind of thing.
Prior to taking the scarf off, I guess if you were to come up to me then and say, shall I wear this? My answer was it's a bit weird. I remember saying that a lot. That's a bit weird. Because of the whole thing, if we go out, I don't want anybody screw facing at you, basically.
That's what she said in the email as well. In the email you said that you feel really weird about people that you know from your past, from when you wore the hijab. You feel really weird and you don't want to see them now that you don't wear the hijab.
No, but
I really understand that perspective. I really get it, because I feel awkward when I see people from back in the days when we used to hang around as kids and we all used to wear hijab, or as teenagers. I feel really weird seeing them out and about now, and I'm just I'm wearing the same kind of clothes, it's just without my turban.
But the thing is now that you don't wear a scarf, you can wear substantially more revealing stuff now, and you'll get less eyes. And that's why you never get that from me, unless you dress like a clown, which sometimes Dina does. If he's talking about what you're wearing in a Islamic advice sort of thing, and you're not both on that level, because there's some couples who are very...
An important comment he made there. He said something along the lines of, if now that you don't wear a hijab, if you wore substantially less clothing, you wouldn't get any more eyes or something, as much eyes. That's obviously because people, I'm assuming, see the contradiction of hijab and very revealing, and they're like, what? And now that there's no hijab, and if it was substantially less clothing, you'd get a lot more eyes. Kind of sounds like he would be okay with the bikini, man. That's all I'm saying.
Dean, and they both gave each other advice, and they both help each other Islamically.
They're on the journey together and they're
Yeah.
growing at the same pace.
So if you both are on different levels, and he's literally like using his authority as a man to give you this advice, like, oh, you're not dressing like a Muslim woman should dress, then I do think like you should shut that down for
Yeah,
sure. Especially as if you're not looking for that advice.
Yeah, because as
So-
well, where does all this come from anyway? Just like how you're instantly put off by hearing that piece of advice about the way you choose to dress, when he chose to talk to you as that woman, then if he was to ask you, can you change the way you dress, and you say no, maybe that's an ultimatum for him then. Well, I can't wife her up if she's going to keep dressing the way she is while I'm dating her. Then that is a red flag. He doesn't respect.
Yeah, but she's very right. But this has just come to mind, right? This has just come to mind, right? What if you met a man, right? I'm talking about me here, and he swears a lot, and he ticked every box, as I do. I'm joking. And you were just like, 4 months down the line, the only thing is you swear a lot. You think you could just calm down the swearing, because that's a bit too much for me. I'm not sure I want to raise children in the future in that kind of environment, for example. I'm not going to say, oh my God, you should have said this. Look, ultimately, she's asking me to do a good thing that I know I should already be doing. Here's an incentive to do it. Come on, man.
Women, unless they look a certain way or behave a certain way that he thinks is acceptable. So in general then, he doesn't respect all women. He only respects the women that he thinks.
And this is a problem with comments like this, generalizing, Just because he doesn't want to marry and have a relationship with a woman who dresses a certain way doesn't mean that he doesn't respect women who dress that certain way. It's just that he's not personally comfortable with it. Perhaps he doesn't want to raise kids in a marriage that one party is okay with a certain thing. Again, example. You don't want to marry someone who swears because you don't want your children to think swearing is okay. But you respect your father who swears. It doesn't mean you don't respect your father. Did you get my point? I'll try another one, yeah? Again, we're talking Islamic things here, right? So let's stick to that. You don't want to marry a man who clean shaves his beard, yeah? I know some people take the ruling that is sunnah, some say wajib, and so on. Let's say that though. You don't want to marry a man who doesn't have a beard, and you will find many Muslim women who will not marry a man if he doesn't have a beard. Does that now mean, by Dina's logic, that they don't respect men who don't have beards? It's not true. Maybe her dad's clean shaven. It's just that she follows certain rulings. She has certain lines, certain things she's okay with, certain things she's not okay with. It might be the example that I gave previously, such that, when she has children with this guy, she expects her boys to grow beards and emulate the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Sweeping, generalizing statements that they will always make against men. I swear to God, as I say, I've watched these guys for 8 years. I will find so many other incidents like this or instances like this. Again, I'm not against them. I really like these guys, hence I've watched them for 8 years. But I do find some contrast between me and them, and they do always align themselves seemingly with women, what seems to be in favor of women. Freedom's not always good, man. If I give you £1 billion and tell you go do whatever you want, you're gonna live a depressed life without some sort of structure, without some kind of internal happiness. I'm just saying yes and do what you want is not always a good thing. It's not. And these guys almost always, their narrative is almost always slash their perspective slash their opinion, whatever term you want to use, is Sid is like, do what you want, and she's like, men are bad, women are women, women do what they want. And in many ways I agree, and in many ways I don't. And these kind of generalizing statements you could take as offensive as well if you really wanted to. And I like these guys, by the way. I don't want people to think I don't like them.
Are deemed respectable. That's
I just
it.
disagree
Advice
sometimes.
to the younger men out there trying to find a spouse: be ready to accept her as you have met her. Don't have an expectation to change her. Because these are when issues come. Because if she doesn't change, but you guys have developed feelings or you've grown a life together, blah blah, Don't have these expectations. So only talk to this person and get to know them if you're happy with how they are when you meet them.
If a dude's just being unreasonable, you'll know it.
As a younger man, 24, unmarried, I would take that advice, and the only thing I would say is, if it's a small change, man, there's compromise as well. If she hated something or couldn't live with something small about me, I could change a small thing, man. And vice versa, if it's like, oh, you wear crop tops, can you just cover your belly? What's the issue? 4 months down the line, you make that comment just because you didn't want to put her off at the start, or you weren't sure how it would come across at the start, or whatever. There's no issue, like, you know.
Yeah.
Just
And you'll know if it's genuine or not, but you'll also know if maybe he said something because he's also part of that community, but then you explain to him, hey, actually, blah, 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 and he takes it very well, and he's like, yeah, you know what, you're right, and you can have that really good on the level conversation, then that's a good sign as well.
I just noticed this video is very relevant.
Yeah, because of the stuff in Iran.
Yeah.
It's like so relevant. Like, women will literally lose their life because of the way they're wearing hijab. You can look at what they're wearing, and they're made out to be like the flipping, like the worst people on the planet, that to the point they'll lose their life because a bit of hair was showing. It's insane.
Yeah, it's actually mental if you think about it.
I don't know a huge amount about the situation in Iran, but obviously what they're saying is disgusting. Don't condone any violence, any ill speech, anything like that against anyone. I don't care if they're walking around naked, man, woman, whatever. If they're not harming anyone else, it's between them and God. You don't have to marry them, is all I'm saying. And you can ask them to change slightly if you want to marry them. And if they don't want to, they don't have to, you know. But it's, I don't have words to describe what she's just commented on. Disagree with it all. With what is going on, sorry, I totally agree with what she's saying, and I disagree with what I've heard of Iran, the situation that's taken place and whatnot. People being harmed because of how they dress. I disagree. It's totally unacceptable. Un-Islamic, furthermore.
Flipping crazy, man. And the fact that we even have to have these conversations, and I feel the urgency and the like, but, it's because even me, like, we're lucky here. Genuinely, you can wear the hijab, you still get shit. You take it off, you still get shit. What the fuck do you do then? And that's why I'm telling you, don't care about people and people's opinions, especially if we're living in a country where we can wear what we want. The last thing you need to do is stress about flipping auntie next 3 doors down who does nothing all day other than gossip about younger people's lives because she's so unhappy with her own. We need to stop focusing on what women are wearing, and it's literally treated as like the most important thing. It's up there with like crazy shit. And then men will commit adultery, flipping abuse women, cheat on their wives, talk to numerous women. These are men in the community now who are talking about deen and lecturing people. And they will get away with it and continue their lives. And then a woman who takes off a hijab on the internet, for example, oh, she's done now. It's actually crazy, and we need to stop. And I am seeing a change from like when I took it off, like I got cancelled or whatever it was. I am seeing a change in attitude slowly on the internet, a positive change. There's a reason I'm getting so riled up, actually.
Yeah, you are.
But obviously it's all like still in me, like all of that from years and years of always being told and then never being enough. And then we wonder why women really do sometimes lose their minds, bro. Because you're driving, that's crazy. The gaslighting is mental. Wallahi, you know, sometimes when I took off my stuff, I literally felt like, oh my God, I'm literally the worst Muslim in the world. Meanwhile, at the same time, I got men on the internet literally doing the most disgusting thing, and they're still preaching against that. And people are like, yeah, but at least they're spreading the deen. Oh yeah, we need to stop this hijabi before she influences the world. Oh my God, you've never even left Bradford, mate. You don't even know what they do in the rest of the world. You don't understand how difficult it is to be a woman. No, because things are not changing, especially what happened in Iran. How is that happening now in 2022? Time for a cup of tea.
That was a good run.
It's still hard.
I agree with them massively here. I'm not sure if the contrast between the judgment on men and women is quite as stark as what she's saying. If it is, you know, it's even worse. But yeah, I totally understand the sentiment she's coming from. I have no experience in it. Obviously, I don't wear a hijab. I've never have worn one. this whole thing about aunties judging all that, you know, heard it, seen it, it's awful. She summed it up pretty well. I agree with 95% of the latter sort of statement there. And I feel for her as a sister in Islam, as they say.
Because then you never know whether you should say stuff on the internet or not, because I know I've got so much to say, I don't even know where to start or how to articulate it without looking like a crazy woman. You just get labelled crazy or too sensitive, like you think you are. You think you're too sensitive, you're not.
Tell her!
It's valid!
Stay away from toxic people. Stay away.
But the more important thing is know how to identify toxic mentality.
Work on yourself. You'll know toxic mentality will hit you in the face.
I feel like hopefully there is more and more women who can voice these things in safe spaces online without having to deal with danger, really. Just as much as there are men spewing utter shite like Andrew Tate and are given the spaces to do that about women. Men from all cultures now and all religions have spaces to either voice good opinions, but voice themselves safely. Men from all cultures now and all religions have spaces to either voice good opinions, but voice themselves safely and freely without any sort of conditions on them or anything, any consequences, potential consequences. Women don't actually have that luxury, and talk about all women now. And then if you are a black or brown woman or Asian woman, it's 10 times worse as well. So you don't just have the issue of being a woman, you're also a black woman. So like we literally, like women, just don't have that freedom. So when it comes to then probably the last thing or the most basic thing, which is how we dress, and then you also want to take that away, it's like, how much will we take before we, you know what I mean? Do you want women who are healthy, happy to be your partners, or do you want just little secondary humans to you that aid your own image as a man, or it's just a part of you, but you're the main thing? Like, we're all we're humans. Like, it's actually so mad to me.
Yeah, so overall, guys, you know, as I say, I really like these guys. I think they're good for the community and so on, you know. They're quite maybe balanced to give a decent representation, but I don't know, there's especially Sid, man. This guy, honestly, how can you not have any comment to make on how your wife dresses? Look, I'm not saying you should tell her what to do. I'm not saying that. But if your wife is doing something un-Islamic, or let's flip it, if you're doing something un-Islamic, or I'm doing, I would expect my wife to be like, yo, hold on, we're Muslim. You know, what are you doing? Why are you walking around with your arse out, for example? It's un-Islamic, you know. And if it's so far that she psychologically can't cope with that and she's like, oh, I have to leave you, you know, then I need to get my shit together, don't I, so to speak. And vice versa, maybe, you know. But I agree with a lot of what she's saying, and obviously the hijab and the whole Iran situation is a hot topic at the moment that I'm not informed on enough to comment on it, so I won't do so. But yeah, I hope my point has come across. I'm not always the best at articulating myself, unfortunately, although I do try. And I do like these guys, for the record, so shout out to them. I just disagree with them a lot sometimes, and that's okay, and conversations are good, and I'd love to speak to them one day if that was possible. And I'd love to speak to them one day if that could be made possible. I'll be totally down for that, because I think it'd be a good conversation. Maybe a bit heated, but I think it'll be good. Yeah, if you enjoyed the video, guys, hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below if you think I'm an absolute idiot and I totally missed the point and I'm totally wrong. I have no issue with being corrected. Correct me. In fact, I'd like you to correct me if I'm wrong. Comment down below your thoughts and subscribe for more. And as always, guys, I appreciate your viewership.